So when it came time recently in my life to make a big decision because something became available, I started thinking, okay, I'm 32 years in radio. I come from a generation of people that's like, you get a job and you stay with it for your entire life. Why would you change it? I mean, you're not supervised. You're at the top of your game. All these things. You're able to really have a command over what you're doing. But then there's another side of you that thinks, I've been doing this a long time.
How's it going, y'all? My name is Justin, and I'd like to welcome you to the circuit where we talk with members of local nonprofits about their stories and what is working well in their field. Today, I am honored to share the set with Laurel Reddington, who is the Director of Community Engagement and Audience Outreach at the museum. Welcome, Laurel.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Excited to have you. So I'm excited to get into the museum and talk about heritage and why it's important for us to look back in a world that seems to be moving very quickly forward. But before we get there, I'd love to just hear a little bit about you and your background. I hear that you didn't start in the museum world.
No, I did not. My first summer out here was the summer of 1990, and I remember it was Midway Market in Edgartown. My father ran down. We were staying at a hotel there, and he put his foot in the door. He's very dramatic. I put my foot in the door, and before they closed, I got the Vineyard Gazette, and I brought it back. And I remember you looking in the want ads, and I got a job with Bob and Peggy Schweer painting. And I'd never done it before. And I remember Jay Bodner, who's well known on the island, was a childhood friend of mine, and his father was a painter. So he gave me all the lingo and language that I could use to kind of, wink my way into the job. And it really went from there. I ended up working for Peggy in landscaping, and I graduated college, came here, and started living here year round. And I used to listen to MVY radio. And I thought, oh my God, that would be so cool. I was hugely into music and thought, I was always given the weather report as a kid and, those kinds of things. And I thought, I'd love to be a DJ. So I just kept going there after landscaping, all filthy. And I remember there was a few instrumental people over there, Mitch Wortley, Barbara Dacey, and Jeff Damon, of course, who just kept encouraging me to come back. And Jeff put me in the production room for about a month saying, just practice, give me some tapes. And he eventually, that was like in June, he gave me a part-time position. And then by September, he's like, you're going to get a full-time job. And there's like a whole nother story about why this island became so special for me, because I met my husband there, but that's a story for another day. But it really started off a career I never anticipated being in, which was radio broadcasting and communication. And something started to stir inside of me, just what an amazing platform radio is, because there's such power in a voice and how you use it. It's about community, and it's about that passion that I really wanted everybody to feel like they had a story, and everybody's story means something to somebody and makes an impact in the world. And listening to another person's story is so important for us, because we might be hearing something that is very familiar to us, and we're like, I'm not the only one. I'm not so fringy. And we might be hearing something that's completely outside of our experience. And then we're like, wow, I never considered that. I get it. And you build empathy. You just exercise that empathetic muscle a little bit more. And hopefully on the other side of listening to someone's story, you walk away feeling a little more connected and feeling a little more seen and feeling a little bit more involved, and like you're going to walk out there and smile more. And so it was very, very rewarding for me to be in radio for 32 years. I was able to be myself, and meet such amazing people. And so when it came time recently in my life to make a big decision because something became available, I started thinking, okay, I'm 32 years in radio. I come from a generation of people that's like, you get a job and you stay with it for your entire life. Why would you change it? I mean, you're not supervised. You're at the top of your game. All these things. You're able to really have a command over what you're doing. But then there's another side of you that thinks, I've been doing this a long time. So my decision to leave MVY full time was simply based on the fact that I really feel to serve this position in this community, you need a different perspective. I mean, I'd been one mind for so long, and I'm a person who doesn't really like to function on one mind. I like multiple inputs because you can't get the full. I like to think that I can think around the issue very open-mindedly, but one person cannot do that. So I started to think, it needs to come through a different perspective. The community deserves to have more young energy. It's a new time. There's so many new things happening. Could I do it? Sure. But am I the right person to do it? Probably not. And so it was really an opportunity for me to make a shift in my own life to kind of keep myself inspired and energized, but also paying it forward to somebody else who's going to be out there and be able to have that really new, fresh energy and perspective on things and be able to go out and have their opportunity, like I did, to do something special for the community.
That's an amazing story. Thank you for giving me the little insight into it.
Well, thanks for letting me go on.
Totally, of course. That's what this is for. And I heard a couple really interesting things. One being this idea of voice and how that really can bring us together and create empathy. And it sounds like there are actually some parallels between that and the new work that you're doing.
It was really an amazing moment for me when it clicked that I wasn't straying too far from what I had been doing, because you don't necessarily want to completely lose that skill set and go into some really random territory that you have no experience with. And it was Heather Seeger, the executive director of the Martha's Vineyard Museum, that really encouraged me to think about it as, when it comes right down to it, it's about storytelling and preserving our voices, like you said. And there was a really big internal shift for me in understanding that, and excitement for me to be able to take whatever skills that I have developed in my radio career and reapply them. And it's a new kind of challenge that I'm so excited about.
I just want to touch on one thing. You kind of took the courageous step to make like a really big transition. And it stuck out to me that you come from a generation of you get a job and that's just your job. Yeah. How was it like on a personal level, kind of like wrapping your head around that transition? Because it sounds like you knew deep down, it was like, my time is complete here and I'm actually excited by this new thing. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't like fear associated with that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, what's funny is part of what started turning me in the direction, like halfway through, I was having a little bit of an identity crisis, thinking, did I make the right move? I mean, you just have this insecurity of, can I do this job? And there's a lot of questions that you have about yourself and making. So yes, there's definitely these like little twinges and these little pulls. But what's interesting? So I was walking with my friend Polly one day, and she is such a great sounding board. And she said something that really went deep. And it was her way of being so supportive. It was more of the way she said something rather than what she said. It was kind of like, this is so exciting because you're taking a really bold move, and this is really liberating and inspiring, because so many of us, she basically drew attention to the fact that she knew it was going to be hard, but that I was going to be able to do it. It was just, I think, that faith of a friend reminding you that you can do hard things and you can make transitions and you can recreate yourself. And I think that's when it started me thinking, we're on Martha's Vineyard. Talk to one person and they've done a bazillion things. They have so many layers. And stepping outside and saying, I just shed a skin. That's one part of my life. And my daughter also said, when she was growing up, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to choose something. And she's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, as I got older myself, I was like, she's right. life can be whatever you want it to be. So as weird as it got for like a month or two in the middle of the transition, there was a point this past summer that it just was like, click, a light switch went on, and I was like, this feels so miraculous. This feels so fantastic, liberating. I feel full of light again, and I feel re-energized. And I also felt very good because I felt like, when you let yourself go and you just let things kind of happen, and, people say you have to make it happen. And sometimes I feel like we try too hard and then we make the bad moves. I kind of just pulled back the rein. I just kind of like decided to let myself flow through this one and let myself choose energetically where I was going. And I feel like it worked out for everybody involved. MVY got some new fresh energy. It signaled we all have a really good mix of veteran and fresh energy over there that's going to be so full of evolution. We just turned 40, and now we go forward into starting a new decade with that kind of energy. And the museum just celebrated 100 years, and it's like a totally different, they've never had anybody in a position like this is a brand new position. And it was like all kinds of new things happening. Then you're like, oh my God, why didn't I think about this? Like, not why did I think about this earlier, but it's like, why did I ever doubt that this was the right move?
Because it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. And we like the illusion of having control over a situation and holding on. And I know it's going to go this way, and I know it's going to go this way, and I'm going to make this happen feels oddly like good and like satisfying. But in you saying actually like let go and step back from the reins and then just watch the possibilities fall into place, there is a level of trust that takes, though.
There is definitely a trust fall there.
I love what you said too about having a supportive friend and a supportive network and someone to be like, yeah, you got this. Like,
yeah.
And we don't know how it's going to go, but you have whatever it is, and I'm going to be here to support you. That's like so powerful. And I think those community connections are what really makes all of this worth it, and makes what you were talking about of like really living. That's what living is, I think. And it sounds like with your new role at the museum, that's what you want to bring into this, right? Like bringing life and community and connection into that world.
Before I go into what I was going to say about what you just said, I just want to point out, you just said something really powerful too, that there's that point where, it may not go the way you want it to go, but you're still going to be all right. And when you have somebody telling you that, like you can have a ton of friends saying, no, don't do that, or warning you about, but when you have that friend that's like, go for it. You're going to be fine either way. It doesn't matter. That's the faith you need. Like, why wouldn't you try that kind of a thing? And that's really important. And so walking into the museum, and I'm on a whole new team now, the fact that this museum is really centered on not just history, details, dates, it's the stories that bring these characters or objects to life. Because there is something to be said for walking into a museum and just feeling the energy, whether it's a really dusty old museum, or in the case of Martha's Vineyard, the identity coming to being a community museum, being a museum for people who love the vineyard and want to know what makes it tick. But I think generally speaking, I think many people understand that we really do have to reconnect with our history so we don't repeat. I mean, our history is there for us to understand, well, that really didn't work. And why didn't that work? Was it just the timing? Was it this, that, or the other thing? Maybe that would work today, or maybe if we change these things, this is what we can do. I feel like there's a big shift going on right now where it's like a return to thinking and thinking about, what did they do in the past? Where's my identity? Like, am I connected to this group of people? The Martha's Vineyard Museum just happens to be one of those places where we want all generations to come and hang out at the museum. And this next year in 2024, we're going to be experimenting with a lot of different things that will bring people into the museum to see that this museum is special, that this museum you can move around in and you can participate, like the home exhibit. We're not just putting stuff up for you to look at. You are going to interact with it. You're going to put your thoughts down on a piece of paper and take a clothespin and pin it on a string. Your story is going to be told. Your story is going to be honored.
Absolutely. I love what I hear of museums are a way for history to inform evolution.
Yeah.
And I see so much about how AI is going to help us reinvent the future and how we need more tech to get us out of all of these problems that we've created. And I just want to bring voice to the fact that, like, we're not the first ones to do all this stuff. Like, I think there is a lot of value in looking back at the historical record and seeing what did work really well. Oh, sure, a lot of things didn't work. That's the reason that we're here in many ways, but there were these little nuggets of what really did work. And I think that's a powerful thing in this age where we're moving so fast, maybe a little even blindly into the future, to like take a moment and pause and look back on what did work really well and what do we want to repeat and what didn't work and what don't we want to repeat. And museums literally, physically are a place for us to do that and take that pause. After talking about all these links that this museum can create, it can bring the stories together and the artifacts and the information and the insight all into a space that really enhances the community. That being said, we're on the vineyard. There's the beach, there's movies, there's friends, there's parties to go to. There's a lot of stuff going on this place, and that's why it's so special. Why should somebody show up to the museum, and why is that going to be an impactful experience, whether it's solo, on a date, or with your family?
I like that you said on a date, because
just throwing it out there.
Yeah,
Maybe even direct to camera. Like, you're going to make your partner very happy if you take them to a museum on a date. Just saying.
Absolutely. Especially the Martha's Vineyard Museum. So, I really love this question because, of course, you're going to do all those other things. But I know myself, if I'm going to a particular place to vacation, it means so much more when you know a little bit about it. And though we have rotating exhibitions, we also have permanent exhibitions. And I feel like you can have so much fun. And there's going to be so many other things that are going to start building into the museum experience going forward, and opportunities to like paint your own memento and things like that. That a museum can be a really wondrous experience. Doesn't have to be this quiet little, like, let's tiptoe around it. Don't touch this, don't touch that. There's a lot of interaction. There's like the hands-on history for the kids. There's even things for the adults, like crafts for kids and adults together to do something meaningful together. There's a lot of opportunity for families to bring back that thrill of discovering and experiencing, and not just buying stuff all the time necessarily, but we do have a gift shop. But I mean, it's more about the experience and the wisdom that you can gain from, and the life experience you can gain just from being exposed to these artifacts and these things. And again, another thing about the Martha's Vineyard Museum, there's a lot of light in there. It's the old maritime hospital, and it was a camp, but there's a lot of light, a lot of windows, more windows than people might imagine. And so you're not creeping through this old musty building. You are walking around going, wow, this is a really cool island, and look at all these things, which feeds back into what they're going to take away. And why it's important is because when you visit someplace on vacation and you take some time to go to a museum, chances are you're going to connect with one story that stays with you. And it's either going to affect you positively and inspire you in some way, It's going to maybe plant a seed in your child who's wide-eyed and wondering what they're going to do in their life. It also just might be something so cool you can talk about with other people that you encounter elsewhere in the world. It creates community by way of when we have more stories to tell ourselves. You're sitting at a bus stop, you just, hey, have you ever been to the vineyard? Or, did you know this or that or the other thing? I think it just creates that community connection no matter where you go in the world.
It definitely does. And it gives you more things to talk about and more points of engagement with other people. And I think spending a lot of time on phones and behind screens, it's becoming scarier and scarier, especially for the younger generation, to engage with people in real conversation and connection and dialogue. And having these points of insight are little inroads to create that empathy with a wider breadth of people.
Yeah, because asking you a question, do you think with your generation and younger, you're kind of craving social opportunities because it's gotten so awkward out there in the world? And for instance, coming to the museum and sitting down and doing a puzzle or having a cup of coffee with a friend or around the Fresnel in the pavilion, or playing a board game. Like, how often do you sit down? I know families have game night and people get together and play mahjong on the island or backgammon. But how cool would it to kind of go back to those times when people did just hang around and talk?
Totally. It takes, I think we've been on this pendulum swing since like the internet really got going, like 20 years ago or so. And we've been swinging towards it because it's creating dopamine and we can share and and see what people are doing. It's creating all this wonder and oh my God. And now it's getting real hot and there's a lot of things out there.
We're all exhausted.
We're all exhausted from it. Seriously. And I really do think that we're starting to swing back towards slower and more intentional and more connected. And I know for a fact that having those slower, more intentional, more connection-based experiences leave me more energized than sitting on my phone for an hour, even though it still takes stepping through the resistance of like, all right, we have to get people together. We have to send some invites out. We have to say, we're going to go do this. We have to get people from point A to point B. Like there are complexities around it that make it a little bit more challenging.
You have to get off the couch.
You have to get off the couch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And nobody wants to do that anymore because we've gotten so lazy because everything's so easy.
Right.
And it's not even lazy. It's just with anything that you do repeatedly, like if you work out, you're going to get stronger. If you paint every day, you're going to be a better painter. If you write every day, you're going to be a better writer. And, everything you do has to take practice. So if you are just immobile on your phone all the time, other things atrophy. They just kind of go away and we forget we're alive. We forget I need social interaction. I need this person. I feel great, like you just said. Yeah, I'm dragging myself out of my dark, whatever, my self-imposed, hermit lifestyle. But how great do you feel on the other side of that experience? And if we just continue to remind ourselves of that, and that museums are ideal places really to do that, because there are reminders all around us of how life was lived before us, and even modern, history in the making type things, where this moment right now means a lot. Why? Just listen to the story.
Just listen to the story. And I hope for everybody listening and watching out there that this can be a reminder that it's worth it to get up off the couch, metaphorically or literally speaking, and to get to a place where you can learn and interact and be around others and really feel that sense of community. So we'll have lots of information of how this can tie back to the amazing upcoming programs at the museum, which you are spearheading for.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
So, thank you, Laurel. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat and talk about history and where we're going and how that enables our community. So
Well,
thanks for stopping by.
thank you so much for inviting me.